This is Morning Live. Thank you so much for staying with us this morning. The United Democratic Movement, the UDM, will launch its national manifesto at the Isaac Wolfson Stadium in Port Elizabeth today. The party's biggest support base is in the Eastern Cape, and thousands of supporters wearing UDM colours are expected to attend the manifesto launch. The party has always maintained support in the Eastern Cape. The floor-crossing legislation in the 2000s affected the party severely in Parliament, as it lost 10 of its 14 seats in 2003 after the legislation was enacted, and then again lost 3 of the 9 seats it won in the 2004 elections. Well, by the time of the 2009 general elections, the UDM dipped to just 0.85% of the national vote, getting 4 seats. In the 2014 general elections, the party clawed back some ground, winning 1% of the vote and retained its 4 seats. Well, for more on the story, we cross back to our reporter, Jayed-Leigh Paulse, who is, of course, in the Nelson Mandela Bay, and I believe she is standing by with the political analyst. Jade, it's over to you.
Well, good morning once again, Pearl. We are coming from the City Hall here in Nelson Mandela Bay, and earlier on we spoke to the Mayor, Mongameli Bobani. So I think it's quite fitting that we came, or rather we crossed from this area. We'll be making our way to Isaac Wolfson Stadium in KwaZulu shortly, and we'll be chatting to the UDM Deputy President there, Ngaba Yomzi Kwankwa, and we'll be chatting to find out, do they really expect the numbers to turn out? We know that Isaac Wolfson Stadium can take 8,000 people, so we'll see whether that actually plays out, and if are they able to make up those numbers. But it really is a numbers game in Nelson Mandela Bay, and I think across the 9 provinces we know that the UDM stronghold is in the former Transkei homelands, that being King Sabata area, Umtata. So it really is going to be interesting to see how many people actually flock to that stadium where the UDM president, Bantu Holonmisa, will be delivering his speech at 12:30 promptly. But with me right now, I am joined by our political analyst, Jolene Steyn-Kotze, and we're going to be chatting to her about the manifesto. Jolene, obviously it's a numbers game. I think a lot of people back at home are wondering if the UDM can actually pull in the numbers. We know that they have declined over the years. They've picked up again. But where are we now, and how are they faring?
You know, I think it's quite an interesting question, and I think one has to think strategically as well, that politically the UDM had decided to use Nelson Mandela Bay as the venue for their launch, and that could potentially be because they are currently in a coalition government. You know, you're sitting with a UDM mayor. You're also sitting with a situation where you have a political party that has approximately 2% of the vote in the executive mayor position, but of course with the cooperation of the African National Congress. So strategically, I think the thinking is, in terms of getting those numbers, is that UDM members and ANC members, for example, might flock to the stadium almost in a show of solidarity for this particular coalition government in Nelson Mandela Bay.
But wouldn't that be telling in terms of what's happening in the current coalition at the moment in Nelson Mandela Bay? Is this a way for the ANC to come through the back door in order to garner support by using this stance? And also, with regards to the UDM numbers, do you think that the mayor is going to use his position in order to draw support from communities?
No, look, there is this perception out there that the whole coalition with the UDM was a way for the ANC to also, kind of get back into the reins of power within the metro. But I think there are some key issues that also need attention and that might play in the mind of the voter. One cannot ignore the allegations of corruption and maladministration, for example, that is still a proverbial dark cloud that hangs over the executive mayor's head, and that kind of tends to fall with what we have seen in terms of political development within the city as well as the province since the course of 1994. So it's going to be a question, I think, more of to what extent people are willing to spend the day to go out and to really listen to what the UDM manifesto is. We know that the UDM has been declining in the Eastern Cape. We've also seen other political parties capitalizing and making marginal inroads, especially in UDM strongholds around the King Sabata municipality. So for now today, it's wait and see to see if 8,000 people do indeed go and listen to the speech.
And then lastly, Jolene, just in terms of the youth back at home who are unsure who to vote for, I know that many of the youth and, people across the country are looking at these manifestos and quite singling out parties whom they would like to go and vote for. But looking at the smaller parties, do you think that they're actually going to be able to, rise to the occasion, so to speak? And do you think that those people back at home who are watching these manifestos are going to be drawn to smaller parties and have hope and faith that they'll be able to put something on the table?
Now, I think it's a very interesting dynamic. What we've picked up with our research, especially around youth voting behavior, is that youth would tend to either have a strong political party affiliation and stick to that political party and vote for it. But what we are seeing more and more is that youth are going out wanting to split the vote, to kind of reduce the dominance, the electoral dominance that the bigger political parties have. So in that scenario, and that's very much what we saw in 2016 as well, in that scenario, your smaller parties become kingmakers because if bigger parties cannot have an outright majority, they have to look towards cooperation with smaller parties in order to be able to take the reins of power.
It's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out, especially with the May election just around the corner. Thank you very much. That was our political analyst, Jolene Steyn-Kotze, just talking about the UDM numbers and what she expects to pan out today, but also saying that there has been a decline in the numbers with regards to the UDM, but it remains to be seen whether those supporters will come out and support their president, Bantu Holonmisa, who will be delivering his manifesto speech at 12:30. Pearl, it's back to you.